Hi, how are you? Hope you're well. So today I'm here to start a very exciting reading vlog that I've been so anxious to film. Obviously you've read the title and seen the thumbnail, so I don't know why I always start this so mysteriously, but whatever. Today I'm going to be reading book recommendations based off of Barbie movies. So I grew up on Barbie movies and Bratz movies. I'm sure any girl and woman watching this probably did in some aspect, but I really loved them. And honestly, a lot of Barbie movies and Bratz movies kind of just formed me as a person. It's truly one of those things where if you watch the Barbie Fairytopia trilogy, you can just understand why my brain functions the way it does now. And same with Barbie Swan. Like, those were probably my top ones. And Mariposa and Nutcracker and Magic Pegasus, all of them. Let's not list them, but yes, I loved them. One day I was scrolling on TikTok and this one girl showed up and she was like, book recommendations nobody asked for, Barbie movie edition. I'm like, nobody asked for? I didn't know I could ask for this. And so I picked a couple books or movies that I feel like I know very well, like inside out, and I'm going to read their books, and it's going to be a good fun time. And at the end, I'm going to let you know how accurate that recommendation was. So let's get into it. So the first movie that we are inspired by, as you could probably tell by the intro to this section, is Barbie and the Magic Pegasus. For this Barbie movie, the book that was recommended is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I'm going to be very honest with you. It has been a while since I watched this. I found this TikTok maybe a year ago at this point, and I just wrote the books down and I was like, I'm gonna film it when I have time to film it, which is now. So I really don't remember why it was recommended, but I absolutely loved The Magic Pegasus. It is such a fun movie. The love interest is one of the best love interests in the whole Barbie universe, in my opinion. And purple was one of my favorite colors growing up. It still is my favorite color. I'm one of those people where I struggle with favorites. It kind of just depends on my mood. Purple has always been an overarching favorite, especially the light lilacs that are very heavily used in this movie, and the palace in the sky, the snowy atmosphere, the dark cliff castle, ice skating, everything about it I just really loved. And so I'm very excited to see how The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea compares to that movie. I haven't started it yet, but I'll probably start it soon-ish. I'm kind of like stuck in between having to read a lot of books at once, so I don't know if I'll start it this week or next week or when, but I'm going to be starting it soon, and I'll check in once I've finished. Hi, so I have finished Girl Beneath the Sea and I'm here to talk about it, obviously. I did end up giving it 3 stars. It wasn't bad, it just necessarily wasn't my favorite book that I've ever read either. The largest reason for that is because I quite frankly just struggled to get into the writing style. It was written in a way where I just didn't connect with it all that well, and so I felt disconnected from both the characters and the plot for majority of the book. And I think this was because this book starts with an immediate action scene, as in page 1, second sentence, we're doing things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I just find when things happen that way and I don't know who is who or what is what or where is where, I tend to just be a bit lost, and then that makes me feel disconnected. So I don't necessarily know if that's a me issue or a book issue or a combination of the two, but I do think that that has to do with why I started to feel disconnected, and then it just continued on from there. The story was decently interesting though. I can definitely see why this average rating of this book is very high, and I'm very sad that I disconnected with it because I really wanted to like it. I mean, we've seen the cover, it's stunning. You want to like books with covers like these, you know what I mean? And it was definitely very atmospheric, which definitely is bleeding into the whole point of why I picked it up, which I'll get to the Barbie stuff in a bit. Don't worry, I didn't forget what this video is about. It did just feel kind of like a fantasy that I'd read before. Obviously, it's unique and it has its own magic system and everything, but just in the grand scheme of things, it didn't feel overly unique. One of the largest reasons for that is because I guessed one of the biggest plot twists, if not the biggest plot twist this book has to offer. So when that happens to me, it just feels a bit basic. It wasn't a bad plot twist by any means, it's just one that I saw from the halfway point or earlier, so it was just unfortunate overall. In regards to the Barbie thing, which is why we're all actually here, I feel quite conflicted on if this was a good book recommendation. The reason I think this is a good book recommendation for Barbie Magic Pegasus is because Barbie Magic Pegasus, when I think about it, I see a purple cloud world, and when I think of this book's atmosphere and setting, I see a blue underwater world. And although those are quite opposites, the color scheme is similar enough and they feel similar enough to the point where if you're missing the Barbie Pegasus world, this feels very closely related to it in that sense where it's very otherworldly, very not Earth-like, and you get the same feelings from it even though the worlds are quite different, and overall it just has like a very specific color associated with it. For me it was blue, and then with Magic Pegasus it's purple, and so those two things just really atmospherically, it felt like a really good recommendation. However, plot-wise, I think this book reminded me more of Barbie in the Nutcracker, which I can't say why, because if I say why, it will be spoilers, but something in the plot happens and it felt a lot more similar to Barbie and the Nutcracker than it did to Barbie and the Magic Pegasus to me, and so I do think that it could be a good Nutcracker recommendation as well, especially because it's not Christmassy at all. I think it's kind of a combination, like if you combine those two movies, this is much more similar. And I did watch the movie, by the way, since the movies are now available on YouTube. I'm watching every single movie for this video. I did watch the Magic Pegasus. I will leave my review up here from Letterboxd. I have a pretty decent memory of both, and I think this is a decent recommend. I wouldn't go into this expecting. It's one of those where it's like if you're craving Barbie the Magic Pegasus, then this is a good recommendation. However, if you picked it up without that recommendation, I don't think you would get any of the Barbie movie vibes, if that makes sense. However, if you want to give it a shot, I definitely recommend it. A star rating in terms of how good the recommendation is for the movie, I would maybe say also a 3-star, just kind of middle of the range. But it was fun though, and I love that I have an excuse to watch the Barbie movies. So we're just going to go on to the next one. Hi, so I'm here to start the next book for this challenge. In this Barbie movie is obviously Swan Lake. It is one of my favorite Barbie movies ever. I don't know if I mentioned this, but Barbie Swan Lake is one of my top Barbie movies ever. And Swan Lake is my favorite ballet ever, even more than the Nutcracker. I absolutely love it. It's so magical and enticing and wonderful, and I love it so much. And so when it came out that there was a recommendation for Barbie Swan Lake as a book, I was very excited. However, I'm very skeptical of this book because I actually just read the blurb of this book for a different video, and I don't really see how it's going to be related to Swan Lake, but I guess we'll have to read it and see. So the book I'll be reading is Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Porinek. First of all, can we just take a moment for the dust jacket? That is hands down one of the most beautiful book covers that I've ever seen in my entire life. It is so magical and wonderful and just atmospheric. Like, you look at this and you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, and it's stunning, and I cannot wait to read this. I've been wanting to read this for a year now at this point, I think. So yes, I'm very excited to finally pick this up. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I will check back in and let you know how much this fills that Barbie Swan Lake void, and if I would recommend it to you if you love that movie. So I'll see you when I finish this in a week or two. Hi. So I finished Where the Dark Stands Still, and I did end up giving it 3 stars. The reason for that is this book made me realize that I don't think I really like folk tales or mythology as much as I would like to, because I just realized every time I read something that's based off of folklore or mythology, I usually just don't really connect with it unless it's Greek mythology, which is something I've had an interest in throughout most of my life, which is a disappointment because I want to like folktales and I want to like folklore-esque stories. So it's such a shame that I just simply don't connect with them, and I hope maybe one day I'll find a book that changes that for me. But this book definitely did make me realize that that is just not my type of fantasy, at least not right now. That being said, because I didn't connect with this book, I'm a bit relieved because something happens at the end of this book that I think would have ripped me to shreds if I had connected with this book. And so a part of me is a little relieved because I felt nothing. I really did enjoy the atmosphere of this book though. It was really dark and eerie. I love woodland settings that feel alive, or mostly any setting, like sentient houses. I love settings that also feel like they are alive and that they are their own independent character in the story. And the forest, the woodland in this novel definitely had that quality, which was really lovely. And I just love that the character that it brings to the actual setting of the book. However, in terms of the actual Barbie Swan Lake film recommendation, at the beginning I could see it a little bit, but honestly the further I got into the book, I just didn't understand why it was recommended. And the reason for that is, as I was reading, I couldn't remember what Barbie film this book was recommended for, which is kind of a problem. When I was reading the first one, I never forgot that it was for Magic Pegasus. However, for this one, I kept thinking, was this Swan Lake? Was this Fairytopia? Was this also Magic Pegasus? Like, I could not for the life of me remember what this book was recommended for until I went and checked in my notes for this video. I don't think that it was a great recommendation for Barbie Swan Lake, to be very honest with you. But like I said, I did see things at the beginning, so if you have read this book, I would like to know if you think that this book is a good recommendation for, if you like Barbie Swan Lake, read this novel. I don't think that it's necessarily the worst recommendation. However, it's not a recommendation that I would make at all. If someone said, hey, do you have a book that I can read that's similar to the Barbie Swan Lake movie or gives the same vibes and feelings, I wouldn't say this one. In fact, even though it's not out yet, I feel like A Treachery of Swans by the same author might be closer. But yeah, this one was really just kind of a disappointment, to be honest, in terms of the recommendation. And then in terms of the actual book, it just kind of fell flat for me. So very sad. However, still one of the best covers I've ever seen in my entire life. So at least there's that. Hi, we are on to the final Barbie film / book. As you could probably have guessed from the little intro of this section, the Barbie movie that we will be reading a recommendation for is Barbie Fairytopia. If you don't know, this trilogy is one of my top favorite Barbie movies of all time. That movie formed what my brain looks like to this very day, and Barbie Mariposa as well. That's just what the inside of my head looks like at all times. And Swan Lake, realistically. I'm a maniac. The book that I will be picking up, or have technically actually picked up starting an hour ago, is Lore of the Wilds. And I'm a little bit into this book at this point. Like I mentioned, I started it this morning, and I'm about 28% of the way through, and I'll be very honest, as of right now, I'm not seeing why this book was recommended at all, nor am I really enjoying it that much. So there is a chance that I might DNF it, and if I do, I will pick up Spellbound in its place to try and see if I can still actually tell you if it's a good recommendation or not. But we will see at the end, not at the end. In the next clip, you'll find out if I finished this book or if I picked up Spellbound. Right now I'm really not seeing it, and I'm also not vibing with it at all. And so I just don't want to put myself in a slump by reading a book I'm not enjoying, but we will see. I want to give it to halfway. I'm 28% of the way through, so I could probably get to halfway by tomorrow, if not 2 days from now. So we'll see, and I will let you know. But I just wanted to tell you, Lore of the Wilds is what we're definitely doing, but if that doesn't work out, Spellbound is the backup plan. I will see you once I finished one of them. Hi, so I'm back. I did end up DNFing Lore of the Wilds, and I also ended up DNFing Spellbound. But listen, I can still give an opinion, so don't worry. Lore of the Wilds, I don't think that it's worth picking up for any Barbie movie, let alone Fairytopia. And it's not a book that I would recommend really, because it just fell very flat. There was a lot of potential, but the pacing was just very strange. Everything was happening incredibly quickly, and I think it's not worth the time, in my opinion. I would definitely maybe give the author a shot with her next book or series. However, this book or series I just fully recommending skipping. But then I picked up Spellbound by F.T. Lukens, and I think that is a fantastic book for Fairytopia. So like I said, I did DNF it, but that is to no fault of the characters, the plot, or even the author. My only gripe is because this was the second book that I picked up by F.T. Lukens, and I genuinely just think that their books are much more geared toward the younger side of YA, or possibly even more so higher level middle grade, I think is the below genre. As I was reading it, it just felt a lot better suited for a 11 to 14-year-old reader, and that's not a bad thing at all. I actually quite love that, because I believe all of F.T. Lukens' books are queer, specifically gay, and I'm very much of the belief that I think more younger people need to be reading queer stories for enjoyment, just to see that it's normal and fine. That also goes for older straight people. There's a lot of times where you hear straight people have maybe read one queer romance, and it's like, why? Read more. They're great. They're lovely. They're wonderful. I love that it's more so geared for the younger audience, and I think it is good. So it's not to a fault. It's not a bad DNF. I didn't hate it. I thought it was really interesting. It was just too young for me, and so I didn't enjoy it that much, and that's really the end of it. But for a Fairytopia recommendation, I think it's perfect. And I also think it's perfect for a Fairytopia Magic Rainbow, so both film 1 and film 3. I think it's perfect for that, and the reason for that is because even though I didn't get to that part, the book is about a magician's apprentice with magic and a magician's apprentice without magic, which is very reminiscent to Elena not having her wings in the first film. And then later in the book, I didn't get to this part, but both of their teachers go missing, and it's up to them to find them and solve the mystery, which also is incredibly reminiscent of both the first film where Azora goes missing, and then the third film where all of the guardians are put to sleep, and essentially all the apprentices have to do the spring thing. I forget what it's called, but I think it's genuinely, this is the closest book that I've read for this challenge to the Barbie film. It was truly perfect. Even if you were older, if you were in your late teens, 20s, 30s, whatever, if you want to read a book that reminds you of Fairytopia, definitely pick it up and give it a shot. Just know going into it that it reads younger, and I think if you expect that, you probably won't have an issue with it, and if you do, it's still a fun read. But it genuinely is perfect. The premise is perfect. The vibes were quite perfect as well. The world it's set in our today world. It's not a magical world in terms of it being completely different. It's just a normal urban fantasy. However, the characters are very just cartoonish in a good way, and the magic is there, and it's just silly and fun. There's a cursed doormat that tries to trip you all the time, and there's a coat rack that doesn't like it when new people enter the office. It's very fun and magical in that kind of way, and in a silly way, which I do think a lot of Barbie kind of draws from. I think this is the best book out of this whole series. I really enjoyed trying this, and if I ever find more recommendations, I do definitely think I would try them out and maybe even review them for you so that you can know if you should pick them up or not. If you grew up on the Barbie films like I did, please let me know what your favorite is, and if you're like me and you can't pick a favorite, your top 3 or top 5, I would love to know. If you like me or my videos, I'd really appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.